Hey folks, this is Kalani. We have some new information claiming to be a leak of the new World of Warcraft expansion that will be coming after the Shadowlands and the 10.0 patch that will hopefully revitalize the entire game. The time in between an end of expansion patch and the announcement of the next expansion is always a lot of fun for these leaks alone, because you can never quite tell what could be real or what could be fake, and some people come up with some crazy stories and then some are actually quite believable. So let's take a look at this new Dragon Isles leak to see if this could be detailing our next World of Warcraft adventure. Apparently, this information was taken from a private game dev Discord. The new expansion is straight up just going to be called the Dragon Isles, and all of the marketing being put together has the tagline of Azeroth has awoken. Having the Dragon Isles as an expansion title is definitely plausible. We know the Dragon Isles are on the table for a story setting if nothing else, and from what we know of the jailer encounter, Azeroth waking up after the Shadowlands is over could very well be a possibility as well. That's also quite a fun tagline to try and get players reinvested or interested into the game again. We're also going to have a new zone, the Dragon Isles. I would certainly hope so if that's the expansion's main focus. There will be a new race, the Black Dragons, and a new system called Worldshaping. Woohoo, new systems, because we all want and love new systems, right? Let's keep going. At the end of Shadowlands, in the fight with the jailer, Azeroth is ruptured. We beat the jailer and save the planet, but there's consequences. Some stay a while and listen events after the fight describe the state of Azeroth, and Magni reverts back from diamond form. That's pretty interesting. I guess Magni would revert back either because an awakened Azeroth no longer needs a speaker, or maybe the world isn't powerful enough to keep the connection running. Magni has been in his diamond form since Cataclysm at this point, so reverting back to a normal dwarf would definitely be closing at least one story as we move into the next era of WoW. We also know from data mined information that the jailer directly attacks Azeroth during that encounter. We don't know the extent of the damage, but it's probably going to be pretty bad, and we know that we do in fact defeat him. All of the info we have access to points towards that conclusion. Having an expansion built around helping Azeroth wake up in her real Titan form and heal the world could be a nice change of pace, and it might tie into that supposed big new system called Worldshaping. The 9.2.5 pre-expansion event being put together is huge. Lots of reused events like earthquakes and invasions, but also a massive time-walking event that's being designed as a mini-season of mastery across lots of Azeroth-centric dungeons and raids. Devs want players familiar with the history of Azeroth before 10.0, a big tour of old events and lore. This could be really cool for a variety of reasons. The dev team have said that Shadowlands will wrap up Book 1 of Warcraft. We're finally turning the last page in this very long story, and we're going to start something new. So it would make a lot of sense to have some kind of recap event for the first book, right? Kind of like how when a new season of something comes out, you know, like Witcher that just came out, we always get a full recap of the previous season right at the start, just to make sure it's all nice and fresh in your memory before the next round of story kicks off. Time walking is the perfect vehicle to accomplish that in WoW. We could see major events replayed from Classic all the way through to the end of Shadowlands, a true story of Azeroth leading up to her birth. It could also provide a lot of fun content, and we could touch on storylines and plot points that we haven't seen in over a decade. Despite how much truth there is in this leak as a whole, this recap event thing might actually be one of the best ideas I've heard in a while. There are going to be crazed trogs, quillboar, mantid, and elemental invasions across most of Kalimdor, Eastern Kingdoms, Northrend, and Pandaria, with a new world boss called Garadon, son of Galakrond. I honestly expect every pre-expansion event to have some kind of invasion mechanic. It's been very popular, well received, and easy to implement. It's almost a guarantee now that any pre-expansion event would include them in some form going forward. It's also a very easy way to introduce the next enemy on our list, because, well, they're invading our stuff, so obviously they're the bad guys. The son of Galakrond plays into the dragon theme too, so I could see that happening as well. Then we have some new expansion information. Apparently the 10.0 cinematic being put together is the biggest Blizz have ever produced. The entire cinematic team has been developing this for over a year. All Shadowlands pre-rendered cinematics were scrapped and the whole team has moved on to this. It's a love letter to Azeroth and mirrors the original WoW launch cinematic and ends with Azeroth being born. That sounds epic. That could actually be huge. I've had a bit of a weird feeling for most of Shadowlands. The cinematic cinematics that we've been getting for key story moments haven't been as snazzy or polished. We've seen a lot of in-game cinematics in places I would have expected to see more effort put forth. Some of the in-game cinematics have been rough around the edges too, so it actually wouldn't surprise me if the majority of the team had been pulled off of Shadowlands stuff and full focus was going into whatever the next expansion is going to be. The World of Warcraft launch cinematics have always been some of the best pieces of gaming trailers to come out of any studio, and that still holds true for things like Shadowlands, even if the story didn't go the right way. The right cinematic could send a shockwave through the community, which is exactly what they need to bring players back to the game. A cinematic that ends with an awakened Azeroth could definitely have that kind of impact. Now, as a result of the Jailer's assault, Azeroth the Eternal is born from the World Soul. She's a dragon, sort of. All World Souls are unique, and Azeroth's essence has indirectly shaped the planet for eons. Dragons are tied directly to Azeroth, who is sort of the dragon progenitor. That's kind of cool, so I guess dragons don't exist anywhere but Azeroth, according to this. A dragon-themed Azeroth model also has some awesome potential to it, so that's kind of exciting. Once players reach Dragon Isles, they work directly with Azeroth to reshape the world. Story here is that the planet has taken a beating over the last couple of decades and is having dire consequences for everyone living there. Yeah, we haven't really been taking care of it very well, have we? Monsters, Shah, demons, undead, titans, eternal ones. We also kind of messed up the whole afterlife thing there for a bit. Imagine trashing a place for 15 years and then it wakes up and you have to interact with it. That's going to be awkward for sure. Azeroth has a character described sort of like Lilu from Fifth Element, a supreme being but with the mind of a child. Players need to help her unlock her powers to heal the planet. She's in a temple on Dragon Isles with Thrall and Rathian. Lots of Earthwarden lore as the three of them trying to do what Deathwing couldn't. I guess that means before Deathwing turned bad, right? Trying to keep the world safe and all that fun stuff instead of burning it all to the ground. Azeroth also has her own talent tree. Looks very much like old school talent trees from Classic. Players can help her by training her via this tree. Each talent is also usable by players with the World Bond ability, so the more Azeroth learns, the more we'll be able to do. That's interesting, but this could either turn into a fun and cool mechanic and system, or another grindy slog, and honestly we have no idea how that will go until we actually see it for real. New abilities are like Covenant abilities but no additional lock-in choices. Everyone gets the same abilities. Abilities have secondary effects depending on the zone you're in. One example is an ability like Abomination Limb that also works as a grapple hook. That could be okay, or really bad. The idea of having similar abilities to Covenants but having no restrictions on what you can choose or use sounds more ideal, but everyone having the same abilities tells me this will end up being very general. It kind of reminds me of Legion to BFA and the transition we had there, where in Legion we had very different class and spec specific artifact weapons, and then we threw them all away and we moved to one artifact that everyone had access to in the heart of Azeroth. That turned out to be incredibly bland until essences were added in later. Essences were also general purpose and everyone had access to the same stuff, and it could be fun and interesting in some cases, but then some classes had incredibly boring options as well. I wonder if they'll try to recreate something similar to the essence system with this new talent tree. Dragon Isle zones will change over time via world shaping. Some pretty cool massive changes, like a whole zone turning from a desert into a forest. Zone is heavily elf focused, with night elves trying to discover a way to restore Teldrassil with Azeroth's help. You plant trees and tend to a huge forest here, like a massive version of the mop farm. Chilling out, slowing down, and just tending to a forest could be a nice change of pace. Seeing the world change as we progress through systems and patches will be interesting too, though I wonder how they would do that across the entire game. Would zones change as we hit certain server milestones? Is it all on a per character basis? Is it just whenever new patches launch? The idea of world shaping is really cool, but I do think it would be a massive undertaking to get it to work properly. World shaping unlocks new abilities in each zone: water walking, flying, teleporting, spectral sight, and treasure finding. Kind of cool, and I guess that would point towards at least 5 different zones, right? 1 per zone, 5 abilities, so 5 zones at least. That sounds kind of typical for an expansion launch. Some older zones in Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor will be getting big updates during the expansion. If we have an Azeroth focused expansion, that also sounds quite likely, and we're tying to the world shaping stuff. Honestly, I could see all of this being implemented in an expansion for sure, especially if they go down the road of Azeroth waking up and we need to tidy up the place. That would also fit the narrative of us taking a break from the cosmic stuff, which is apparently going to be the case for the next expansion according to the dev team, so the Dragon Isles could actually happen. There's some interesting ideas here, and it makes me excited to see what the dev team actually have in mind. That's not all for this leak though, there's also going to be a new race, the Black Dragons. It works like Worgen, customize your dragon form and humanoid appearances. Humanoid can be any race, including allied races. Extra customization option for humanoid form include horns, tails, jewelry, scales, as well as effects like burning eyes and molten blood, which is a cool new effect. I actually think this could happen. We haven't had a new race in a very long time, and if we're going to a dragon-focused expansion, playable dragons isn't really that weird. We have seen dragons take the form of many different mortal races, humans, elves, blood elves, even gnomes, so using that as a vehicle for making dragons playable isn't too far-fetched actually, and I'm sure players will love tinkering around with new customization options and, having horns and tails and scales and everything. Dragon form is mainly used for travel and 2 racial abilities. Story will explain why black dragons need to learn how to fight like mortals as one of the classes. Black dragons can be warriors, mage, rogue, druid, hunter, warlock, priest, shaman and paladin, all of the original WoW classes. Combine that with being able to play any race and you suddenly have almost any class and race combination. Black Dragon Druid lore and shapeshift forms are super fun. I bet they could actually make some awesome draconic themed druid forms. That would be really exciting actually. Rathian has been trying to restore the Black Dragon flight since Kata. Players are new dragons that Rathian has been overseeing in the Dragon Isles. Rathian has recruited/kidnapped class trainers from all of Azeroth to train his new flight, because of course he has. The Warlock trainer will cause some players to flip out. It does sound like a rather Rathian thing to do, to kidnap people to try and train his dragon flight. I wonder who that Warlock trainer could be. Are there any Warlocks you can think of that went missing randomly that players would immediately recognize? No one person comes to mind in particular, but maybe I just haven't been paying enough attention. Since the battle with Deathwing, all dragon aspects have been losing their magic. New dragons, the players, need to learn how to fight alongside mortal races to save their race. Rathian's big thing is reversing the loss of magic from dragons completely and protecting his flight. That's not terrible as a story device either. It would certainly give dragons a reason to take up mortal arms, which in turn gives a gameplay explanation for why we can play as dragons. They definitely thought this post through before releasing it into the wild, didn't they? And then the last point here, there's no big bad in 10.0, but there are infinite dragons, Netherwing, and some new Dragon Isle specific proto races. There's a pretty fun Trog progenitor race that's actually super advanced and intelligent. Going back to smaller zone contained stories, big focus on discovery, soft rebooting Azeroth, and setting up future conflicts. That's all the info in this particular leak, and I have to say, this could be the bones for an okay expansion. There are some big question marks about how some of this stuff would or could work, and even though I think the idea of being able to play as dragons and the whole shapeshifting into any race thing kinda lets it work in game, I also doubt that Blizzard would let us play as dragons or dragonkin. That seems almost too cool right now, though if playable dragons became a thing, I would 100% swap to that for sure. I bet many players would jump on the chance to be a dragon in WoW. I think the next expansion not having a big bad is also a good idea. We don't need this huge looming character just off in the distance the entire expansion, building up something scary and colossal only for them to fall at our feet, seemingly like anyone and everything that we come up against. Tending to a broken world, helping this newborn titan discover itself and develop its abilities could be a way to take a step back, both from chasing the next big bad but also chasing down the next cosmic challenger. A smaller story, closer to home, adventurers out having adventures. Even if that's not the Dragon Isles, I hope that's the general basis for the next expansion. But a Dragon Isles expansion does have some lead up to it. We might not be dealing with dragons right this very second, but this isn't the first time we're hearing of the Dragon Isles. Back in BFA, you could collect a dragon scale from island expeditions and deliver that to one of Rathian's minions. They explicitly and flat out state that they're looking for the Dragon Isles. Few know about them, and fewer have been there. If we find anything out, they will be waiting with payment. Rathian is actively looking for the Dragon Isles. For what purpose, we have no idea, but that confirms that this is actually a place we can go. We just need the right expansion to bring us there. Secondly, there was a shop bundle recently that had all of the stored dragon mounts neatly collected together and offered them up for a discount. That's not the most reliable evidence, I will admit, but we have always seen a store mount introduced into the game that didn't make much sense for the current expansion, but it was then a creature that came from the expansion to follow. This has been going on since Mists of Pandaria, a fairy dragon model that was used a lot in WoD, then we got a rune saber that was used a lot in Legion, and we saw both the Vulpine mount and the Silverian Dreamer in BFA, and both of those models are used a lot in Shadowlands, specifically in Ardenweald. This dragon pack could be pointing towards a dragon-themed expansion, but we'll have to wait and see, obviously. If nothing else, this leak is definitely entertaining to read through, and it has some good nuggets of ideas in there. I'll give it a B+ for effort, but what do you think? Do you think this could be the next WoW expansion, or is this complete and utter nonsense? Is there anything in here that you like the sound of and you think could work? And most importantly, what do you think the theme of the next expansion is going to be? Dragons? Light vs. the Void? Shadowlands 2? Return of the Jailer Boogaloo? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to everyone who's subscribed on Twitch. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching, folks. Good luck and have fun, and as always, I'll see you next time.